Well, hello, America. It is Friday. I saw all the pundits after Obama's speech last night raising the hammers to drive the final nail into McCain's coffin, laughing all the while because here's a candidate who could pack a stadium with 80,000 people while poor John McCain couldn't even get 10,000 to hear him announce his vice presidential pick. Let's talk about some real change now. There's real change in the GOP. I want you to know, if you watch this show for 10 minutes, you know I am not a fan of John McCain. I just said last night, because I thought I was going to be Romney, I don't know how I'm going to possibly vote for this guy, even with Romney on the ticket. Well, things may have changed, at least for me. I said months ago that Alaska's governor, Sarah Palin, is exactly the kind of person that we need in Washington. I introduced her to you in a story I did about her in April, a small little story that I found, and she intrigued me. It was a story about the birth of her son, Trig, a son that she was blessed to have in her life, all the more so because of his Down syndrome. Doctors said, oh, he's going to be a baby with Down syndrome, and she wouldn't even allow them to do more testing. She's like, okay, I get it. We're going to have some difficult issues. Good. We're going to welcome him with open arms. I wasn't sure, I told you back in April, that somebody that real would be accepted in Washington. She's very, very different, especially from what the GOP has transformed itself into. But I reached out to her and we had a talk. We had a couple of talks, actually, one about the election and energy policy and the lawsuit that she had just filed on behalf of her state after this Bush administration put the polar bears under protection of the Endangered Species Act. You know, when Trig was born, she said that she had felt an unspeakable joy. An unspeakable joy had entered her life. I think for the first time in this campaign, some conservatives might finally be able to say the same thing. I have to ask you, how is Trig, your newborn?
Oh, Trig is doing wonderfully. Thank you so much for asking. He's an awesome bundle of joy. Thank you, Glenn.
I have to tell you, Governor, I was so impressed with the way your child was born with Down syndrome, and I was just so impressed with the way you and your husband dealt with that and the message you sent. So thank you for that as a father of a child with special needs. Tell me about the polar bear lawsuit.
Well, we are suing the federal government, recognizing that the Endangered Species Act is not a place to kind of mess around with in terms of listing as threatened a species that right now is very, very healthy. In fact, the number of polar bear has risen dramatically in the last 30 years. Our fear being that extreme environmentalists will use this tool, the ESA, to eventually just curtail or halt North Slope production of very rich resources that America needs. You know, we need that oil, we need that gas. I'm glad you're fired up about it, Glenn, and I appreciated your monologue there.
I'm so sick of it, Governor. And you know what? Is it true that Anwar, where they want to drill, it is 700 miles away from the closest tree? Is that true?
Well, what's true about Anwar is that it's about a 2,000-acre plot also, a lot of land that is... the footprint is smaller than LAX, for instance, that plot of land that needs to be explored. And Anwar it's ripe for exploration. There are so many other parts of Alaska's plain also that, again, very, very rich in reserves. And if we want to become more energy independent, it makes sense, obviously, to be looking domestically. Safe, clean, domestic supplies of energy that Alaska has and that we're ready and willing and able to contribute to the rest of the U.S. It infuriates us also that the lockup of Anwar, but other areas also is leading to that lack of independence and lack of energy security that we need in America.
You know, they are suing now in the state of Massachusetts because what they want to do is they want to build windmills off the coast of Nantucket, and the federal government won't let them do it, and they're suing because they say the state has a right to build these windmills if they want to do it. If they win, can you use that legislation to say, you know what, I don't care what you say, Washington, we're drilling, it's our oil?
It is our oil. It is federal land, though, so we need Congress to see the light and quit relying on unstable and these foreign regimes that aren't real friendly to America, asking them to increase production for America's security needs and for our energy needs to be met. That's ridiculous. It's nonsensical. Again, when your sister state, the 49th state in our union, Alaska, up here, we have those resources and they're ready to be tapped.
What does the average Alaskan say about this?
The average Alaskan says, again, we recognize these reserves being ready to be tapped, and we are ready to contribute more to the U.S. There's really hungry markets here in Alaska, too, though. We're paying outrageous prices for our oil and our heating fuel.
Aren't you paying the most in the country? I mean, you're paying over $4 a gallon in Alaska.
Yeah, isn't that ridiculous? We are. And Alaskans, collectively, we own these resources underground. We want them to be tapped. And again, we're ready to contribute more to the U.S. in terms of resources that can lead to a safer nation. And I say this, you know, while our nation is at war, while we're fighting in some sense over energy supplies, it's ridiculous. We do have the resources here.
Have you considered, or have you been talked to, or anybody said anything about you running with John McCain?
There's a lot of rumor and speculation about, not just me, though, a lot of governors who may be tapped, at least for consideration. The rumor's out there.
Yep. Well, would you go to, well, I hate to ask you this, would you go to that den of vipers in Washington if you were asked?
You know, if I had to make such a decision today, it would be no. There's a lot that Alaska could be, should be doing to contribute more to the U.S., and I think that I can help do that as governor of the state, staying here.
You know, I have to, I don't mean to be rude, because, I mean, look, I grew up in Washington State. Alaska is spectacular in its beauty. My father worked up in Alaska for a while they were building the pipeline and everything else. But I have to tell you something. We brought Alaska into the Union, if I'm not mistaken, with an eye to the future of its reserves. Why would we not tap the Alaskan reserves right now?
That is exactly why we became a state. 50 years ago, we struck deals with the federal government saying that we wanted to be let into the Union and we'd be as self-sufficient as possible. We'd do that by developing our God-given resources up there, and we would contribute to the federal government. And now, though, we're not allowed to do that. So the federal government and again, the extreme environmentalists are not allowing us to uphold our end of the bargain when we became a state. We are so rich with millions and millions and millions of barrels of oil still sitting underground, trillions and trillions of cubic feet of natural gas, clean, stable supply that's not allowed to be tapped.
Joining me now is CNN political analyst Amy Holmes. Hello, Amy.
Hello.
I don't know anything about, for instance, her foreign policy. Can she find Iran on the map? I don't know that yet. But my initial reaction is, this is a great pick.
I thought it was a bold choice. I think that it gives McCain that maverick imprimatur all over again. And I thought it was fun. If you watch that today in Dayton, John McCain was beaming ear to ear, and that's not easy for John McCain to do.
Yeah.
And as I was watching her, oh, Glenn, I couldn't agree more. I felt like I was watching, this is real authenticity, as opposed to the Joe Biden, you know, kid from Scranton, Scrappy Joe thing that we were hearing all week long.
If I hear one more time about how he loves Amtrak and rides Amtrak, nobody's riding Amtrak that's, you know, Joe Lunch Bucket. It's $97.
I was going to say, Amtrak is expensive. Have you been on it lately?
One way from Delaware to New York, it's $97. Oh yeah, he's Mr. Joe Lunch Bucket. Okay.
Right.
Here's the thing. Let's just go through some of her qualifications quickly. What I like about her and why I think that this is somebody that I can actually back is she is truly a reformer, not just of Washington, but her own party. She busted the head of the GOP. I think the governor there in Alaska tried to kind of buy her off with a seat on an ethics committee sitting right next to the head of the GOP. She busted them and filed paperwork, an official complaint on the ethics with the GOP. I think that's fantastic.
She sure did, and she also opposed that bridge to nowhere. You heard her say it today. She said, thanks, but no thanks. We are not going to be wasting the taxpayers' money. And you guess what? She's going up against the powerful Republican Senator Ted Stevens when she does that. So she's been willing to buck the party line to do, as she says, what she thinks right. I thought that was very powerful today when she said the reason you go into public service is to do the right thing.
The experience thing isn't what bothers me as much as it is somebody with judgment. Somebody with real judgment and has not been tainted by the system yet, and I think this is why I like her so much. She is someone who is willing to torpedo her, and I think you got this feeling from her. She doesn't want it that bad. She'd like it. It would be nice. She'll do the job. But she's not going to sell her soul to the devil. She'd be more apt just to walk away and then walk right to a TV camera and say, this is why I'm walking away, guys.
Well, and, you know, Glenn, honestly, I was moved. I mean, I felt myself getting kind of choked up when I saw her turn to Senator McCain and thank him for this honor, that this is a deep honor. I mean, that was real sincere emotion. I loved her line when she said, you know, that with Hillary, that she had made those 18 cracks in the glass ceiling, but women aren't through yet. They're going to break on through. I thought that was a great line.
Next week, we're going to bring a lot more about her because you need to meet her. I don't know how she's going to weather under the storm here, you know, with the press and everything else, but she has the right vibe to her. She's done the right things in her life. She's exactly what,
she's a real person.
She's what I've been looking for. Amy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming up, the outspoken gun-toting rocker Ted Nugent. He'll join me for the rest of the hour. Oh, hang on. We go 0 to 95 when...